A U.S. submarine has reportedly sunk an Iranian warship amid a rapidly expanding confrontation across the Middle East. At the same time, missiles are flying between Iran and Israel, while U.S. bases across the region face growing threats. What began as a series of targeted strikes is now spreading across land, air, and sea. The key question is no longer whether tensions are rising. The real question is whether this moment marks the beginning of a much wider regional war. The current escalation began after coordinated strikes by the United States and Israel targeted Iranian military infrastructure and senior command facilities. The operations were intended to weaken Iran's regional military capabilities and signal that any further expansion of Iranian influence would come with direct costs. Iran responded quickly. Missile and drone attacks were launched toward Israeli territory, while several U.S. military installations across the Middle East were placed on high alert. At the same time, naval forces began operating more aggressively in nearby waters, particularly around strategic shipping lanes that carry a large share of global energy supplies. The reported sinking of an Iranian warship by a U.S. submarine marks a new phase in this confrontation. For the first time in this escalation cycle, a direct naval clash between Iran and the United States appears to have taken place. That shift is significant because once conflict spreads simultaneously across air, land, and sea, the risk of uncontrolled escalation rises sharply. This escalation did not emerge from a single event. It developed through a chain of strategic decisions taken by all three actors involved: the United States, Israel, and Iran. The first key decision came from Washington and Tel Aviv. By launching coordinated strikes on Iranian military infrastructure and leadership targets, they were not only trying to weaken Iran's operational capabilities, they were also attempting to restore deterrence. Over the past few years, Iran has expanded its regional network through allied groups and missile programs. From the perspective of the United States and Israel, allowing that network to operate freely would gradually shift the regional balance of power. Iran's retaliation followed a familiar doctrine. Instead of responding on a single battlefield, Tehran expanded the confrontation across multiple domains. Missile launches toward Israel signaled that Iranian and Israeli territory are now directly linked in the conflict. Drone attacks and threats against U.S. bases add pressure on American forces across the region. The maritime dimension adds another layer of strategic complexity. The waters around the Persian Gulf and nearby sea lanes are among the most important energy corridors in the world. When naval forces begin operating aggressively in these areas, even limited clashes can quickly affect global trade routes. The reported sinking of an Iranian warship by a U.S. submarine is significant because it signals a shift from indirect confrontation to direct military contact between Iranian and American forces. Submarines are typically deployed in high-stakes environments, where strategic signaling matters as much as battlefield outcomes. In practical terms, this naval incident sends a message in two directions. Toward Iran, it demonstrates that U.S. naval power remains capable of operating in contested waters. Toward regional actors, it signals that the United States is willing to enforce maritime control if escalation continues. At the same time, Iran's strategy is not necessarily to win a conventional naval battle. Tehran's advantage lies in widening the pressure field. Missile strikes, drone attacks, and threats to shipping routes create multiple points of instability. This approach forces its adversaries to defend several fronts at once. Once conflict spreads across multiple domains, controlling escalation becomes far more difficult. Each side begins reacting not only to attacks, but also to signals about what the other might do next. The most immediate consequence of this escalation is growing pressure on the wider Middle East security architecture. When the United States and Iran move into direct confrontation, even limited incidents can force other regional actors to reposition themselves. Israel now faces a two-layer challenge. On one side, it must continue defending its territory from missile and drone attacks. On the other, it must coordinate closely with U.S. forces as the conflict expands beyond Israel's immediate borders. That coordination increases the risk that Israel could become more deeply involved in a broader regional confrontation. Energy markets are also watching closely. The sea lanes near the Persian Gulf carry a significant share of global oil shipments. Any sustained naval tension in these waters introduces uncertainty for shipping companies, insurers, and energy traders. Even small disruptions along these routes can quickly influence global energy prices. Regional powers are also under pressure to react. Gulf states must balance their security ties with the United States against the risk of becoming direct targets in a wider confrontation with Iran. At the same time, global powers such as Russia and China are likely monitoring the situation closely, as prolonged instability in the Middle East could reshape wider economic dynamics. What is unfolding now is not simply another exchange of strikes in the Middle East. It is the gradual opening of a multi-domain confrontation involving three major military actors. When conflict spreads across airspaces, sea lanes, and regional bases at the same time, the margin for strategic miscalculation becomes much smaller. For the United States and Israel, the objective is to restore deterrence and limit Iran's ability to project power across the region. For Iran, the objective is different. Tehran wants to demonstrate that any attempt to weaken its position will trigger instability on multiple fronts. This dynamic creates a dangerous equilibrium. Each side is trying to signal strength while still avoiding a full-scale regional war. The challenge is that once missiles, drones, and naval forces are all active at the same time, controlling the pace of escalation becomes far more difficult. And in situations like this, the next move is rarely predictable.